Tapestry of Fate. Chapter 1. Darkane. How did I get myself into this? My awareness returns in a blur of painful audio and sensational effects, and it feels as if I'm spinning and tumbling through the air. On the other hand, my acute sense of touch, it tells me that my body is laying on some hard-packed ground. Now my own heartbeat is causing my head to hurt. Can this possibly get any worse? I thought to myself through the pounding in my own heart through my head. Luckily, all this tumbling and spinning is slowly starting to fade away. A loud pop in front of my direction was heard for like the fifth or seventh time, and it sounded like a log that was burning. Through my eyelids, I can see the dance of red from the light of the campfire. I open one of my eyes, but the other is closed by something dried on the side of my head. As I made the attempt to break this dried stuff off, my arms were tied behind my back. Even thinking about it will cause Murphy's Law to kick in. At least I used cotton rope, I thought with a bit of dry humor as I tested my legs. I sure used plenty of it, was my next thought as I can now start to feel the amount touching through my clothes. The next sound I zeroed in on was the disgusting sound of someone eating with their mouth open. I was about to make a rude comment, but I heard the sound of a bone snapping and the person slurping the marrow from it. I listened closer to see if I could hear other people. After a minute of listening, it was just him. And I know it was a guy based on select sounds he's making while eating. It was only us two. And by the greedy sound, I feel as if I won't be offered a share of the meal. I look around, and there is an area of small sticks and twigs at least a yard thick in front of me. Then we are in some sort of clearing in the woods, and if I'm not mistaken, the green leaves with the centers being a rich violet told me that they are completely unfamiliar. Even looking at the twin crescent moons in the night sky was wrong. As I searched my memory on why these things were wrong, I quickly discovered that I could not remember anything. What the heck happened to me? I called out across the large campfire at the guy eating. A sinister sounding chuckle emerged from this guy. It was about time you woke up, hero. I paused, as apparently his meal was more important than me. You cost me a job of 20 talons of mithril, you agroth. All I had to do was deliver Nikki after the tribute was paid, and we all would have been on our way. Great, I thought with a sour taste in my mouth. Then I spoke, asking, and what of me then? How much can I be worth? And at that, I started to test the ropes around my wrists. That's the deal, possibly a quarter of the price. Then the next phrase came out, his mouth sounding like he was grinning. Beating you daily to get you to submit will be rewarding. Yeah, about that. I hesitate to ask a particular question. But as the seconds passed, I quickly changed the topic of my question in my head. Is there anything I can trade to you or promise in return for us going our separate ways? Hearing him give a full throat laugh was not a good sign. But what he said next took me back into my own head. Only if you tell me where your technology is at. That takes me back, as a lack of memories hampered this thinking. I thought of what he could mean, but I couldn't figure it out. Can you be more specific? I had to ask, to see if that would trigger anything. There are way too many objects that fall under the term technology. He made a growling noise of irritation. Then he spat out, your healing, speed, unbreakable bones, super strength. What do you think I mean? I thought about those for a few seconds, and said items were coming to mind. Good, I thought to myself. If things are familiar to me, they'll come to mind. Then I said the first easy answer. My strength comes from a 30% muscle replacement with MT fibers. The moderately higher above limit of augmentation that Dr. Hall would agree with. MT fibers, his question interrupted my next item explanation. Muscle tech fibers, I started with an explanation. A nanotubing system of pneumatic and hydraulic actions. Because of the replacement amount, I'm way stronger than those guys who spent the majority of their life getting super buffed. I could sense the disgusted tone in his voice as he asked, as in, inside your body? Cybernetic technology is a classification of this type of tech. Then with a grin, you want to hear about the speed booster? I'm afraid to ask, the guy said as he was throwing more logs on the fire. What With a merry tone, I said, "But the C-hap only replaces a bit of your gray matter in a sensitive location." I could hear him about to question something, but he waited a few seconds before speaking. "Is all your technology inside of you?" "Those that you want to know about," I state as I started to make the attempt to pull my wrist apart. I could hear an audible noise from the ropes tightening. "And your wire rope should keep you tied up," he said to me as I could hear the whining of the hydraulic function from a prolonged exertion of strength. As he said wire rope, crud, yeah, that would stop me for sure. So after my arms and shoulders start to ache from the length of time tense, I gave up. Then it was quiet for too long, especially since I have questions. Finally, I asked, "What's your name?" He was quiet for just as long. After a bit, he replied, "You know my name." "I don't even know my own name at the moment," I finally admitted to him. Then I think I hear him mutter, "I guess the second hit did do some damage after all." "What do you mean the second hit?" I exclaimed to him. As he stood up, his blue scales took me back. His face had a hornless, draconic sense. His cord-like hair was brown and brushed his shoulders around his face. He wore a dark cloak that only hid part of his light blue armor. He held up a sledgehammer of this red metal. He was about to say something, but I exclaimed, "What the heck are you, some sort of lizard man?" In a blur of motion, he leaped across the campfire with his fist raised in the air. An explosion with a moment of pain before I was no longer aware. Possibly should have kept my mouth shut. Pause. This time around, for the return to my awareness, nothing was spinning. There were no slight vibrations to the ground. And the good part, I remember what had occurred since my last wake-up. The bad part is, my headache didn't go away. The thought of him leaping over the fire to strike me was terrifying, but yet I knew I heard him state what he was. I just can't remember what his race's name is at the moment. I'm still tied up and start staring into the campfire, so he didn't even bother to move me around. I could hear the snoring of my captor, as in a steady and low noise snoring. I hear insects droning on that remind me of cicadas. So I look around my area to see what I can use. Besides a bunch of little sticks and twigs, there are good-sized stones encircling the campfire. The next task is to check myself. Where my hands are at, I could feel my belt that I have wrapped around my waist. As I lowered my head to look at what it really is, it was a monster of one. There was even a crossover strap that leads to a metal shoulder cap on my left. And with a bit of my memory coming back, I have a magnetic plate on my back for something that it holds. Damn it to hell for this amnesia, I thought with bitterness as the memory problem is becoming old real quick for me. And my fingers glide at the bottom of my belt. I know there was something there, I just can't remember what. Then there was something sliding past my fingers and I noticed a cavity within my belt had opened up. Then it occurred to me that this is my utility belt, where I keep my tools and sword on me. Filling the multitude of tools that I use, I found the handle of what I was looking for. I pulled out my vibro utility knife, something that can cut through most objects with ease, including my rope. As I was cutting my rope around my wrists, the grip was so awkward and clumsy that the blade slipped and I sliced into my left palm. It felt deep and I did my best not to make a sound. Only a low, sharp hiss escaped between my lips. I felt the flow of blood trailing down my hand, but after a couple of seconds, the pain was starting to fade. This time around, I just pulled my wrist apart with what coils I managed to cut. Twisting and wiggling the bonds, they start to uncoil. Once enough was loosened, I start to slip my hands out of the remaining loose coils. I froze as I heard my captor's snoring change. By the sound of it, either a hitch of taking a deep breath or a bug crawled into his mouth. I shudder at how many bugs found my mouth as I was unaware. Then his sleep returns back to what it once was. A bit of muttering every so often came from him now. I investigated my left hand. All the evidence of the cut is a red stain of blood, as there was no cut. The only evidence of a cut is a pink line that it too is starting to fade away. Then I get to cutting at my ankle ropes, still keeping an ear open to my Raslin, and he called his race a Draken. I thought a bit of memory was returning, and my name is Darkane. With that, I smiled as I now know my amnesia won't last forever. While I uncoil my rope, I have a sense of urgency to return to where I came from. Something dear to me and that I forgot. Something dear to me that I forgot. Something that could cost someone's life if I don't return. But that part of my memory is closed off. Once I was finally free of the rope, I slowly stood up and investigated my surroundings better. I couldn't help but to stretch a bit to get the soreness from being in a single position for so long. As I was doing a back bend, my lower back popped a few times. I righted myself quickly and watched Raslin. After a minute studying him, he was still asleep. I continued to study him, note his breathing. His cloak does cover him some, and the light of the campfire reflects the sheen of his light blue breastplate. I continued to pay attention to him until I am sure he is asleep. Then I began to look around at how I can get clear of here. I am indeed surrounded by sticks and twigs, possibly in the hopes of me stepping on one to wake him up. So I got on my hands and knees. Dang that. I started the slow process of getting out of this circle without making a sound. After a minute, I was growing more and more agitated over the fact that I had to play a game of pickup sticks. I swear, this task is enough to piss the Pope off. A stray thought entered my mind as I was halfway through the enclosure of sticks and twigs. Then the next thought I have is, who is the Pope? Why would it piss him off? By the time I did manage out of it, I looked at his area more closely. He has his sledgehammer of this red metal laying next to him, and in arm's reach. I believe I recall him calling it the Maul of Great Weakness. Whatever, I thought to myself. Looks like a sledgehammer to me. Then I saw this massive sword that is wide and has a single side edge cutting blade. I know that this was my sword, the Grand Cleaver, so I carefully moved towards my sword. I'm going to end this without waking him up, I thought as I grasped the handle. But once I started to lift it up, the sound of rocks scratching the blade was quite audible. I was quick enough to duck, spin the blade for extra momentum, and got out of reach. Now I'm at the ready with Raslin fully awake and his sledgehammer in hand. Well, smeg. I should have known that was going to be a trigger alert. As I finished getting out of reach, Raslin was quick to lunge at me, and then everything began to behave as if in slow motion. The CHAP unit has now kicked in. Also, another name that someone called it is bullet time for the cerebral hyper-accelerator processor. I just grinned and prepared to bat that sledgehammer out of his hands. But I forgot one main feature about the flaw of the CHAP. I may see things slowly, but I also move a bit slow as well. My swing wasn't going to make it, so I instead hunkered down my shoulders, shifted to my left side, and tensed up as this was going to hurt. My shoulder cap took the hit and burst into fragments. Luckily, the buckle is still attached to the straps. Then a punch to my face was his second strike that came out of nowhere. To be honest, I was making sure my harness strap wasn't going to be loose. I start to travel down into a kneeling position from the shock of the hit. As I have a knee on the ground, I finally was able to react. As he went in for a kick, I grabbed his ankle and proceeded to stand up, picking him up as well. I'm not completely sure how far I could throw him, but I have to know. Or else me using the phrase, I can't trust him as far as I can throw them would mean very little. As Raslin was about to strike with his weapon, I threw him off balance. Then I proceeded to twist my body towards my rear. I feel that this heavy individual is indeed being dragged before his body lifts up. With all my strength, there was a boost from my MT fibers kicking into overdrive to throw him a decent distance. Yup, I thought with humor. I can't use that phrase anymore. He went flying, grasping the ground to shift his orientation, and slid on the ground several yards away, like he was an anime character. He was now ready to charge me. I have a feeling that I never had to fight another with similar combat skills so I hunkered down and have to think quicker. He indeed rushed at me to counter this, I raised my sword with both hands over my shoulder. He reacted the way I thought by sliding to a stop, but I wasn't prepared for what he threw at me. 3 sharp knives pelted deep into my chest. I quickly removed them and started to cough up a bit of blood. All 3 passed my ribs as they were lung strikes. With howling rage, I lunged at him with my blade low. Released a hand to better balance myself. As Razlan was about to charge again, he had to stop. I had the upper hand. As I swung at him, I barely missed him, but a resulting shockwave emerged from the swing. "What the?" was all I can say from this ability. Then the feeling I felt was actually familiar. I must use this ability plenty of times, was my thought process. Razlan and plenty of branches and loose natural objects went flying back several yards. Razlan hit a tree hard to his back, and the breath was knocked out of him. I take the chance and rush into a shoulder bashing charge. As I was just a couple of yards away, he jumped to the blind side of me. I hit the tree hard with my left shoulder. Then I turned around to where he jumped to. I looked around and didn't see him. But then I hear a noise from above my rear side and look. There he was, jumping out of the tree in near silence. His sledgehammer raised to give me another concussion. When I positioned my sword to impale him, his look was of fear and hate. We both went down and Razlan was on top of me. My sword is sticking out of his back, and I know I was getting wet from his lethal wound. So I pushed him off and tore my sword from his side, making sure he'll die. Standing up, I looked down and I could see him clinging to life. "What are you waiting for, Agroth?" he asked with such venom, such hate. Then he coughs up a bit of blood in the process, as if a curse. "Who am I?" I asked him. "Where did I come from?" I reflexively placed my sword onto my back, on the magnetic plate. He grins and spits at me. "I would like to know myself." He breathes out the last words in a hush. Then he went still. I stared at him for a few minutes, seemingly shocked over killing him. He really didn't leave me any choice, I told myself. Bending over him, I closed his eyes. Then I noticed a light blue breastplate he was wearing under his cloak. I debated on taking it, but instead walked over to his bedroll and 2 backpacks. I don't want to loot a dead person personally. One was closed tight, obviously his. The other was empty and had its contents in a pile. But next to the pile was my comm phone and a heavy pistol. I picked up my phone and reflexively activated it to gain access. The emergency protocol has been activated, and all sensitive files and apps are locked out. But thankfully the music player and most of the library was available. Turning the screen off, I place it in the slot where it belongs on my belt. Picking up the gun, I can tell it was locked also. I grasped it and a yellow light started to blink. I closed my eyes to think of what kind of code I could come up with. Alpha, Theta, 13 Pi, 42 Omega. I guessed at what I could use. I was surprised that it worked. The light is green now. I place it in my left thigh holster and begin to collect the rest of my stuff into my backpack. Then position my sword between me and my backpack. By the time I was done, I looked at Razlan's backpack. I took it and stopped to listen. I thought I heard something, so I closed my eyes to hear better. I was hearing some form of flapping. By the way it sounds, they could be 2 large creatures. The campfire was obviously large and bright. This could be a meeting spot, I thought to myself. As I passed Razlan's body, I stopped to collect his sledgehammer of red. Then I take off in a random direction in a hurry to avoid whatever is coming. And without any fire, I'm almost blind, but it only takes a minute for my eyes to adjust enough to navigate. "I know something big is out here," I told myself as I put as much distance between me and Razlan's body. Then quietly, I said out loud, "Into this strange dark forest. Yeah, something is going to try and eat me." As I blindly went in a random direction in the woods, there was enough light for me to track movement a bit. Then the thought of using the infrared camera on my comm phone came to mind. I continued to walk away from the campsite at first. Those creatures are getting close to landing. I don't need the glow from my comm phone to alert them. After I couldn't see the glow of the campfire anymore, I hid behind a big enough tree to hide from the campsite. I pulled out my comm phone and engaged the login screen, which as soon as the screen lights up, the sudden brightness hurts my eyes and my headache kicks back into overdrive. All I can do is growl at my greatest moment and stupid things I've done so far. I hope nothing stupid tries to attack me as a food source, I said to myself grimly, yet again. Unlocking the basic files and apps was simple. If I think that I could remember, having it unlocked to my biometrics for a week would unlock Tier 1 functions. Each week would unlock another tier of advanced apps. But then again, my memory is known to being faulty. But for now, the basic camera app is unlocked. I once again talked to myself quietly as I set it up to see. With the light shining the invisible infrared spectrum, my camera can augment my sight. But each unfamiliar noise, I shine the camera at it. My imagination is starting to become my own worst enemy at the moment. The trees and insect noises were too unfamiliar to my ears. Even most of the animal noises sounded unfamiliar. After around an hour, based on my phone's timestamp, I came across a lone building that seems to be lost from a time before. I circled the small building and shined my comm phone through the first opening. Nothing but decay and little critters occupied this cabin. I found a half-decayed tree stump to take the moment to sit on it. A few luminescent mushrooms were growing from an invisible ring not too far off. A nice little light show as these mushrooms' light shifts and change. From this vantage point, across from me was a small, thin clearing. The sky was opened up to me, light and shadow in clear definition, contrasting what the stars has never seen so clearly. It was definitely strange and new, but as I look up, they call and pull to me. Then at this moment, being alone in this calmness of a lost time, it was incredibly peaceful. I took a bit longer to try to remember as much of this area's detail. I even used my comm phone to record the area for future reflection. I continue to scan the area, especially against whatever I hear of approach. Eventually, I noticed a strange outcropping of another mostly decayed building hidden by trees and vines. I finally got up and investigated the structure after a few minutes. As I approached, I noticed there was a dry stream bed and what is left of a water paddle wheel. It looks like either a swift kick or a strong wind would cause it to collapse. Then I kicked something at my feet that jingled. I picked up a very worn leather pouch that apparently was trying to return back to nature. After I cut open the leather pouch, that is when a few coins fell out. Picking them up and shifting the spectrum of my comm phone to visually detect color, a function I honestly forgot about, there are a few gold coins and a lot of silver coins. About around the size of a dime, one side was a hornless dragon's head with this type of hair on its head. The other side had to have been a crown of some fashion. I pocket the money and look at the paddle wheel now. Based on the reinforcement and how it was set up, I orientate myself to see upstream in this dry bed. Then I start to walk in the dry stream bed going upstream. It has to find its way to some sort of settlement, I told myself. After around half an hour, the sun was starting to bring dawn around. Then shortly afterwards, I started to hear the sound of rushing water. So I climb out of the stream bed and continue to follow it. I am now picking up pace to see what I'm hearing, as well as the exit from the woods. As I got a bit further, I saw what this stream bed was, an overflow channel. I'm standing on a 5-foot crest on a drop-off into a silty dry ground. Then my comm phone picks up flecks of gold dust in the silt. I just chuckle to myself and jump down. I'm starting to hear the birds wake up and sing in their wake-up tunes, still yet unfamiliar. Then the ground was starting to become more covered with little rocks than dirt and leaves. Once I broke free of the tree line, I was looking at a decent-sized beach of rocks to a river of rapids. There was the other bank with a field, but I doubt I could swim safely across. So I walked towards a rather large and flat-topped boulder to sit on. I leaned my sword next to the boulder I plan on sleeping on. Now, what do we truly have here? I asked myself. Oops. Pulling off the backpacks, I located what would be mine. A pulled out some basic linen clothes, then a wadded up tunic. Once I opened the brown tunic to fold it, an item fell out onto the ground. It was around the size of a pack of cigarettes, silver, and open by the front. Opening, I could see 2 bags. One had tobacco and the other held weed. I even found a pipe I can use, then the area to provide power for an ion torch. I filled the pipe with a combination of both, lit a dried stick close by, and puffed on the pipe to relax. Have to use this sparingly, never know when I can refill this again, I told myself as I wanted to load the pipe again. I continued to dig in my backpack and found bullets without the brass casings, MREs, and hunting supplies. There were no other items that would link me to anywhere or wherever I am at, so I neatly repacked my backpack and lay it down beside the boulder I'm sitting on. Rosalind's backpack contained a wooden lockbox, a cloak, and some dried meat and a half wheel of this whitish green cheese. It didn't smell too bad. When I sampled the cheese, it was pretty good. Then I found this money pouch with mostly gold coins and ones that had made of this light blue metal. It was as light as aluminum and as hard as steel. I put the coins and pouch away. Using my utility knife, I cut the hinges of the lockbox. There were vials of liquids and powders. Then a leather-wrapped bundle that could be lockpicking tools, a very good make. Mainly the tools were of this red metal and a couple that made of the light green metal as well. Mainly the tools were of this red metal and a couple that was made of a light green metal as well. I kept the lockpicking tools and discarded the rest of the box. While eating dried meat and cheese, I kept the remainder and placed it in my backpack. The sun was now starting to peek over the tree line to the east, downstream of this river of rapids. With a yawn, I decided to sleep for a few hours before I made the choice to go upstream or downstream. I lay awake for several minutes, questions racing through my head. Then the foreboding thought of returning home as quickly as possible returned. Something I forgot, and I have the feeling of dread from the thought. I hope I can recover my memories soon, I told myself as I started to drift out of awareness.